Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Chris Asbrock from Impact Sports Cincinnati, and this is another episode of Asbrock's Bengals Thoughts. Again, the Bengals were coming off of a 41-17 beatdown at the hands of the San Francisco 49ers last week, and now this week they headed up to Orchard Park in Buffalo, New York, or in New York, upstate New York, I should say, to face the Buffalo Bills at New Era Field. And it was the first half was pretty bad. Let's just be plain and simple here. It wasn't good. It wasn't pretty at all. The Cincinnati Bengals were lucky enough to be down 14-0 as they moved forward into the second half. But the first quarter, it was not a good game for the Cincinnati Bengals in the first half. This was certainly a tale of two halves for the Cincinnati Bengals as they, for once, made halftime adjustments, and that's something we have not seen in over a decade. Under Marvin Lewis, this was not a team that was going to make those halftime adjustments. Just plain and simple, they were going to, they would have given up basically per se. But overall, wasn't the best game for Andy Dalton. It wasn't the best game for Joe Mixon. Obviously, in the first half, those things were not. It wasn't pretty at all. Andy Dalton finished 20 of 36 for 249 yards. He did have one touchdown, two interceptions for a passer rating of 63.3. He was sacked twice for 10 yards. Joe Mixon did finish 15 rushes for 61 yards, an average of 4.1. His longest was 14. Giovanni Bernard did have 3 rushes for 5 yards. His longest was 4. Andy Dalton did have a touchdown run on basically from the 1 yard line. So, it was a pretty difficult game for the Bengals to start off. Offensively, passing the ball around. Andy Dalton, he targeted 8 different receivers. Auden Tate was the big one that came down with the most. He was targeted 10 times. He did have 6 receptions for 88 yards. His longest was a 32-yard pass that he made right at the end of the half, but that was in garbage time right at the end of the first half. Tyler Boyd, he was targeted 11 times, and he came down with 6 receptions for 67 yards. Joe Mixon, he had 2 receptions. One of those was a touchdown. The other one was a halfback slip screen. That was a beautiful play, and he was able to haul it for a 33-yard gain. John Ross, he was targeted 6 times. He did only come down with 2 receptions. It was tough sledding for him all game. Alex Erickson and Tyler Eifert were all each came down with 1 pass. Darius Phillips, who has been, he's been a shining light the last couple games. Did it again today. He was great. He did come down with an interception of Josh Allen. And looking at the way the final stats read, let's see, it was coming up here on the final team statistics here from the NFL. Bengals were 3 of 11 on third down. That's 27%. But they did a great job of getting off the field on third down defensively, where the Bills were only 5 of 13 for 38%. Now, total net yards, the Bills did have 416 total net yards compared to 306 for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bills did run 73 total offensive plays, that's extravagant. That's, they averaged 5.7 yards per play. And, you pull that off in the first half, which is what's where the majority of the plays were coming from. They rarely got off the field, and as the Bengals moved forward into this game, they found it was tough sledding for them. But the Bengals overall, they did have 19 rushing plays, an average 3.5 yards per play on that, compared to the Buffalo Bills, who ran it for 36 times. And had a total of 175 net yards rushing. So the Bengals did do a good job defensively of kind of cracking down and keeping, these teams, they did a good job of keeping them in check. Overall, Frank Gore, he was the main guy today. He rushed, 14 times for 76 yards. His longest was a 22-yard run. He did have 1 touchdown. That was the one that broke the camel's back right at the end. Josh Allen, he had 9 rushes for 46 yards. He's a very difficult one to bring down in the backfield. And that's one thing I did mention in my preview that I wrote for the site. Josh Allen he has the ability to beat you with his arm and his legs, and that's what he was able to do today. There was a couple great plays he made in the backfield where he escaped a sack and then was able to come off and get and make a play happen from there. So that was clutch there for, in terms of the Buffalo Bills and their offense. But, overall, like I said, they did a really good job of rotating guys out in the backfield, whether it was TJ Yeldon and Frank Gore. McKenzie did get 3 rushes, but it was really Gore and Yeldon were the two that were going to, get the most, say, carries in this game. And that's what it was today. Passing wise, I mean, Josh Allen was 23 of 36 for 243 yards. He was sacked once. It was basically a 2-yard loss. That was the Geno Atkins sack. His longest pass was 49 yards, and he was picked off. I mentioned the Darius Phillips interception. But overall, again, the Cincinnati Bengals defensively, they did a really good job of, keeping this team in it. Obviously, the offense was not doing a great job at all in this game. Plain and simple, it was bad. It was ugly. But the Bengals did a really good job defensively of keeping this game close and giving the offense an opportunity to come back and make something happen in the second half. That's what happened here. You saw, like I said, it was just a horrifically ugly game in the first half, and not something you would have expected. And moving forward, like if you look in the first half stats, the Bengals only had 1 first down compared to the Bills, who had 18 to end the first half. That is that's unbelievable. Bengals were 0 for 5 on third down. They had 76 net yards compared to 257 for the Buffalo Bills in the first half. That simply cannot happen. Joe Mixon only had 18 yards on the ground. Frank Gore had 23. Josh Allen had 22, and Yeldon had 13. Andy Dalton was only 5 of 13 for 63 yards. 32 of those came, like I said, right at the last play of the half, where there was, in garbage time. It's just garbage yards is all it was, as the Bengals were trying to, so-called get a Hail Mary. But, this was, if you look at the time of possession, 22 minutes and 57 seconds for the Buffalo Bills, 7 minutes and 3 seconds for the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, defensively, that's not going to cut it. You can't get off the field on third down. They were 4 of 8. The defense was of getting Buffalo off the field. They had 5 first downs by running the ball, 11 on the ground or through the air, and then 2 via penalty. Again, those things cannot happen. The Bengals at that point had 2 fumbles and lost both of them. And they had 7 penalties for 39 yards. They had already punted 5 times. Their average start their drive start was at their own 28. Buffalo was averaging getting the ball at their own 34. They were 1 for 3 in the red zone. Buffalo was. Josh Allen had already completed 118 passes on 27 attempts for 180 yards. He was solid, in that first half. Cole Beasley had already hauled in 37 yards. John Brown had hauled in 48. It's the first half again was pretty. It was rough. It was rough going for the Cincinnati Bengals, but again, they were able to come back and fight off in the second half and make a play. You look at the first quarter. The Bills. The Bills. They get the ball first. They. Obviously Cincinnati elects to defer. Bills get the ball, and then. You force a 3 and out. And it's like, okay, here we go. The Bengals have to see what they can do. And then, unfortunately, they are, they're held off, and they got to do a 3 and out, and they end up punting, So it's, it was back and forth. But then you see, the Bengals were just, that first drive or the first half, it was tough. The Bengals just unfortunately could not get anything going. But except for the fact it was a 7-play, 73-yard drive that was aided by 2 penalties, and it took 11 minutes and 57 seconds off the field. That was after the penalty, but or after the drive, but it was a 3-minute and 5-second drive where they went 7 plays and 73 yards. It was that's, that it's going to happen. You're going to give up drives like that. But then right after that, Darius Phillips takes one to the house for 92 yards. It is nullified by a holding penalty. I'm going to say it's a rough call, not a phantom penalty, but it wasn't pretty. On take, it's called for the hold. He did have a grab of the jersey, but he was able to push this guy aside. I think that's a little harsh in my opinion. But that nullified a 92-yard kickoff return for a touchdown by Darius Phillips. And right there, if that play stands, it's a whole different ballgame. At that point, the Bengals are already, they come back in the best way possible, taking one to the house. Unfortunately, now you start, and then you end up going, 3 and out on the next drive. That, that's killer right there. So those are the different, things that were happening for this team in the first quarter, that you can't afford to have happen. But then, they do force the Bills to, for another field goal by Steven Hauschka. It's a 34-yarder that made it 11-0. That was basically aided off of the 2-point conversion that the Bengals, were called for 12 men in the huddle. So Buffalo in turn gets the ball, and this is on the touchdown play there, and they went for 2 and got it. Then they get a field goal here, and then they get another field goal with 2:16 left, a 45-yarder from Hauschka. So I made it 14-0 going into the half. The Bengals just, they couldn't get anything. Like I said, they couldn't get anything going. And, in terms of the game, it's, those are the plays you can't afford to have. In the first quarter, the Bills had plays of 34 yards and 24 yards. And those, you have to be able to stop the big chunk, the big chunk yard, plays to where, teams get huge gains on. That's what this defense has to work on. But in fact, like I said, coming into the second half, you have to give the team props for what they were able to accomplish in the second half. They came out and they played great football. They really truly did. The Bengals got the ball first and went right. They ended up having to go down for 3 and out on the first drive, but then they force Buffalo to punt in the third quarter. Andy Dalton throws an interception, and then but then right back at it, Darius Phillips comes back that following drive and gets an interception that immediately lifts the team back up again. So just when you thought the first 3 drives for the Cincinnati Bengals, or for the first 2 drives, I should say, for the Cincinnati Bengals in the third quarter, ended with either a punt or an interception. So it wasn't good. Then Darius Phillips comes back and gets an interception of Josh Allen, and the next thing you know, the Bengals have new life, and that's when Andy Dalton gets the touchdown run. And next thing you know, 3 plays, 22 yards, and it's 14-7. So this team's right back in it here in the third quarter. So again, the team, they get it right, just when you think, I said, things are, starting to go sideways, this team, they bounce right back and get it going again, which is crucial for this team. They cannot afford to let teams, move forward and continue to push while, they're just kind of staying still. And that's what this team did. They did a great job of, getting things done right, and making things happen defensively to where the offense had that momentum as well. And then when the offense goes down and scores, that makes the defense, that gives them all the hope in the world as well. And that's what happened here. The Cincinnati Bengals, defense did a great job of getting off the field. And next thing you know, the Bengals get the ball and they go right down and score. So at the end of the third quarter, it's 14-7. And, time of possession, the Bengals actually had the advantage, in time of possession. They forced the Bills to, they forced them off the field. The Bengals, their drive continued from the third quarter, and they go down. They, a short pass on a rollout. Andy Dalton finds Joe Mixon in the end zone for a 1-yard touchdown, pass and reception. And next thing you know, it's tied 14-14. just when you thought this wasn't going to happen, this Bengals team is right back in it again. They force Buffalo to punt again on the very next drive, and the Cincinnati Bengals get the ball back and they go right down the field. This drive was huge. This was a 9-play, 60-yard drive. It took over 4 minutes. It was 4 minutes and 12 seconds. It was a quick run, and then Andy Dalton completes to John Ross. I'm sorry, and then he's able to find on 3rd and 9. He's able to find Tyler Boyd for a 26-yard pass. That was huge. That was a great pass play. Andy Dalton, on 3rd and 9, 3rd and long, 26 yards, boom, you're right back in it. You got a first down. And then Joe Mixon is, he's brought down, for a negative, basically a negative gain. So, a 2-yard loss there. It was 2nd and 12, and then Joe Mixon on the halfback slip screen, he comes out, gets 33 yards, and next thing you know, the Bengals, they get it rolling, they get it going, and it ends up in a 43-yard field goal with with the Bengals now taking the lead off of Randy Bullock. Just when you think it's like, okay, now let's see what's going to happen here. The Buffalo Bills, to their credit, there was one play that was interesting, and you could see the Bills get the ball back, and at the 440 or 454 mark, they get the ball back with a chance to drive down the field and take the lead or tie. Buffalo goes down. It was a quick pass over to Cole Beasley for 7 yards, and you can see Josh Allen, hurries up the offense, and the defense is scrambling a little bit. There was a little bit of confusion, and they were able to find Allen finds Knox for a 49-yard gain, where he dump trucked a couple of the Bengals players. He dump trucked Sean Williams and Jesse Bates before William Jackson took him down. That you kind of felt the tide starting to turn a little bit, and unfortunately, the Bills, after a while, Frank Gore scored from 1 yard out. But the Bengals get the ball back with a minute 50 to go, down by 4, and a chance to drive down the field to win. And in all fairness, they did a good job. They drove down the field, got all the way down to the Buffalo 28 before Andy Dalton was intercepted off a tip pass. It hit Auden Tate's hands, and unfortunately, it went right to the defender, who got the interception to seal the game for the Cincinnati Bengals, who now fall to 0-3 on the season. On a 21-17 loss to the Buffalo Bills. One thing I will say, though, is this Bengals team, again, never gave up, and it's exactly what you want to see from this Bengals team. They, the fact that they continue to play hard. They regrouped from the second half. These are the different things that we see with this team. And, I saw a lot of crap on Twitter that was coming out saying, oh, same old Bengals, same old. No, it's not the same, guys. It's not. Yeah, they might have lost. The results might be the same, but it's a different mentality on this team now. This team showed, no quit. When they were down 14-0, and believe me, it was an ugly 14-0 at the end of the first half. They couldn't get anything going. Andy Dalton said they couldn't get any rhythm going. He's exactly right. The offensive line was trash. That's what I felt. When I did the preview, I predicted 28-20 Buffalo. I thought the Bengals would be able to at least score a little more on Buffalo's defense. It's another game to where I might have underestimated how good the Buffalo Bills are. But if you look at the way things are going now, the Bengals have their 3 losses this year are against teams that have a combined record of 8-1. I mean, it's not like we're losing to trash teams, guys. This team has a lot of injuries still. You're looking at least 2 offensive linemen down. You've got your elite receiver in A.J. Green, who's out. Guys, these things, I'm not, injuries are no excuse, but it's certainly the reason why the team's playing the way they are. And yet they're still not giving up. So they did this against a team that was, relatively full strength outside of, starting running back, but you got Frank Gore in there. Singletary he's their main guy. He's, in the backfield, he's he's the only running back with over 100 yards rushing on just 10 carries. So, with Devin Singletary being out, okay, but you had Frank Gore step in, you had TJ Yeldon able to come in as well. This Bengals defense did a great job, in my opinion, of doing a good, of keeping them corralled. They didn't let him run wild. Frank Gore kept him under 100 yards on 14 carries. TJ Yeldon, he chipped in 30 yards, but, those two combined had 106. But again, this defense, we knew they were not as bad as they were against the San Francisco 49ers last week, plain and simple. This team is not as bad as they were that last week. I don't know if they are as good as they are when they played Seattle in week 1. I would have to think that they are. There's a couple missed tackles and everything like that. That's, but even then, I think this team is as good as they played in week 1 against Seattle. I truly believe that. But they're not as bad as they are, or as they were in week 2 last week against the San Francisco 49ers. It's just not. It's just a different team. It's a different mentality. You see how, Zach Taylor, the guy shows emotion on the sidelines. It's nice to see that. Marvin Lewis, it's a completely, like I said, guys, it's a completely different mentality. I know a lot of people are still going to say, oh, same old, same old, same old. Yeah, like I said, the results might be the same, but it's a different team. It's a different mentality. Now you look forward next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. And Pittsburgh's 0-3 as well. They're without Big Ben. They don't have Antonio Brown anymore. They don't have Le'Veon Bell anymore. So we'll see. Those were 2 Bengals killers. Now you have Juju Smith-Schuster, he's their big weapon, and Connor. I mean, in the backfield. So who knows? I mean, what do you? I feel this is a great opportunity for the Bengals to get their first win of the season on Monday Night Football against Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, the mentality is different, guys. Under Marvin Lewis, like I said, this team would have quit at halftime, and this game would have been a lot worse than what it was. It would have. I mean, every bit could have been 28-0, 35-0 at the end of the game if Marvin Lewis was still at the helm. I truly believe that. His lack of ability to fire guys up, and his lack of ability to make halftime adjustments. Zach Taylor did, and you saw what happened. This team, all it takes is just a couple opportunities here and there, and that's one thing that when I was watching the game with Nick Semino, we were watching, and one thing he had mentioned, he goes, the worst thing that they could do is give the Bengals, the opportunity to stick around in this game. Other teams, if you put a team away, and you have to put a team away, otherwise they continue to hang around. And that's what happened here. The Bengals hung around and eventually took the lead. And all you can ask for at the end of a football game is the chance to win it. You had the ball with the chance to win it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Andy was under pressure a lot today. He didn't get a chance to fire the ball around like he had in weeks past. But, he was able to, he still threw for 249 yards. He was pressured a lot, though, and he didn't get the ability to step up and fire good passes to his receivers. So, unfortunately, at that point, you got a couple of bad passes here and there. Both interceptions. The first one, the interception was, it wasn't pretty. It was a good play by the defense who made the pick, but the second one, tough. You would think Auden Tate would have caught that. I'm not putting any blame on Auden Tate on this one, but you would think he would have caught that. Just he's just a freak athlete anyway. So things like that are going to happen. But overall, guys, I'm not. This team I'm still saying it. It's a completely different team. It's a completely different mentality. Yes, they're 0-3. 0-3 it sucks. It's not fun. But, it's a lot different feel to the season to me than it's felt in years past. I truly believe that. I don't think that it is I don't think it's just an old Bengals team. It's just not. I mean, the mentality is completely different. So I know, it's tough right now thinking that, but I still see a lot of positives. I still think this team is extremely talented. And once AJ Green comes back, guys, I mean, that's another weapon added offensively here. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But, this team, if you can shore up the offensive line somewhat, I mean, just to provide a little bit better blocking as opposed to guys getting just burned all the time. Cordy Glenn, it's crucial that he comes back. But if he's still out, it's time to maybe think about, looking at retirement. Obviously, long-term health is more important than anything else. So that's another thing you want to think about if you're Cordy Glenn. Other than that, I mean, it's shoring up the offensive line is that's crucial because I think this team offensively has a lot of weapons and a lot of different things that they can do. You've seen it. I like the fast-paced offense. I love getting the balls out of Andy's hands pretty quick on a lot of the plays. But unfortunately, it doesn't really matter when you're under duress like he was today, and obviously last week as well. But overall, again, it's not as bad as some people think. Yeah, again, 0-3 is bad, but it's not. To me, it's not that bad. Just because there is some positives to take away from it. Again, the team still has a ton of talent. And we've lost to, I think a lot of people are looking at these losses to the Seahawks. The Seahawks are the Seahawks. They did lose today, but the 49ers and the Bills as games that you would think that they should win. Granted, the first two games, or the Seahawks game and this game, I still feel that we should have won those. Just the fact we battled back, we had the lead late, just couldn't get it done. But, the 49ers game, that was a complete and utter blowout. There's nothing you can do about that. It's one of those ones you toss the tape out and go from there. So, again, the Cincinnati Bengals, yeah, they're 0-3 right now. Luckily, the AFC North is not a very good division, so that does help out in that aspect there. But, again, it's rough, but it's not as rough as some people are making it out to be. I still think this team is in, they might not make the playoffs. It's you really put yourself behind the eight ball at 0-3, but the talent's there, guys, to really make a run. We just have to shore up a couple things on defense. You have to be able to tackle. The linebacking core has been kind of struggling with that, but you make the tackles. Get some pressure on the quarterback. When they put pressure on Josh Allen, they had him flustered. And the one interception that Josh Allen made was the throw that he made to, and Darius Phillips picked it off. It wasn't a good play, but you put him under pressure, and he made a bad decision there. So again, there's just a couple things I know that Zach Taylor and his staff are going to be working, diligently, to fix, especially before Monday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But again, it's a big game for the Cincinnati Bengals and obviously for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who both come in at 0-3. Again, I can't say enough. It's not fun being 0-3. But again, I don't think it's the end of the world right now based off the way things are going. I still think that there's a lot of talent on this team, and there's still there's a chance to, that they can make things happen. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Asbrock's Bengals Thoughts. As always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at I am Chris Asbrock. Make sure you check out the podcast at anchor.fm/Chris Asbrock. Check out feeltheimpactsports.com. That's where you can find my college football preview, Bengals previews, and then obviously this episode here, along with my YouTube page. So as always, thank you guys so much, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of your day.